for adjustments is next on. Nothing. All righty. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda, and we have items 4 through 8. Does anyone have anything they'd like to pull from that or discuss?
7, we're pulling, we're still waiting to get the sales from the pump.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to pass it? Yeah.
I have a few, let's see, this is in the, let me get caught up with you.
Sorry, when I saw it was 6:01.
Yeah, I saw that. So all items in the consent agenda are up for discussion right now, right?
No, I just asked. Okay, how do you sell that? The other
But you're
items-
right.
Other items would be forwarded if you want discussion.
I had some. No, I don't. Sorry. Other section. Okay.
Oh, it's the other section.
Yeah, it comes later,
Okay.
so it's good.
All righty. I'll make a motion to pass the consent agenda.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good show. Next is San Jacinto River Authority's report.
I'll let Jason start and then I got a bunch of items.
Okay.
So I just have one thing to add outside of the operator report that's in your packet. Last year, the River Authority Woodlands Division had about $370,000 left over from the FY 22 budget. And this is for consideration this month and vote of the trustees next month. But basically, this memorandum on page 42 is asking that we retain those funds. Approximately 220,000 of that went to the generator, fuel tank, and control panel that due to supply chain issues last year didn't arrive until recently. The other 150,000 that's left over, I apologize, I'm under the weather. The other $150,000 that's left over, we're asking that go towards a water rate study for the Woodlands Division.
The water and wastewater.
Yeah, water and wastewater rate study for the Woodlands Division for the wholesale stuff.
So what's involved in that? That seems like a pretty broad category to me.
The rate study. I haven't gone through a rate study. I know from my understanding is that this, we're having an outside contractor come in or consultant. That's going to help us build a model to where they're going to teach us how to use it, how to populate it for future demand issues. Did you have any details?
So currently there is not a detailed comprehensive rate model for the Woodlands Division. STRA has other rate models that we've had utilized water divisions and our GRP division. And those are updated on a 5-year basis, predicting future wholesale rates. So we would like to develop one for the Woodlands, which right now is very rudimentary of our internal accounting department, working with our bond councils and finance committees to go through Excel spreadsheets and basically try to determine rates. You know, we have a lot of large dollar programs coming up, whether it's the AC water lines, the wastewater side, that we feel there is value in helping build a comprehensive model that pulls in all the information from operations to bond funding scenarios to impacts even from raw water rates, BRP rates, how that trickles down, and have a model to be able to predict the wholesale rates for water, wastewater here in the Woodlands. That is something that we would have a consultant building and developing for us from basically scratch. And then it would be training and a user manual for STRA's internal accounting staff to be able to run multiple scenarios whenever we need. And it might turn into really a band of a high, based on these scenarios, here's where the high is going to be, here's the low rate based on this. So, we'd be able to run quickly and respond to either requests from y'all or just the planning purposes behind these large dollar projects and different bond funding scenarios. So we see a lot of value in having a internal comprehensive model.
Is this the same thing that's at the end of your projects and funding list that says Woodlands Digital Water System? Okay, I just I have a question. I wasn't sure what that was either. So I guess it seems like a very broad category of money for something that you want to have a consultant build something from scratch. Is there, I don't know how we kind of give you feedback other than I'm questioning this item as it's presented. I really can't say I agree with it. Give you money back to go spend it on this. Hard for me to say that given what you just told me. I see the need, but I've like 10 questions on why would you go build something from scratch? Why would that be an internal legacy system? There's got to be these things you can pull off the shelf and then adjust them. There's MUD's doing this all over, I assume, or larger water districts. Seems like a pretty big piece of software that has to be maintained, licensed, bought. I'm just, what you just described to me, I'm just trying to distill it down into something that I could kind of say yes or no to.
How can we further answer, and just the answer to one, it's going to be all in Excel format, so no additional software licensing or anything, costs associated with SGRA to maintain that model and utilize it. But what else can we do to provide you the information that you're looking for, help justify the costs associated with it?
And the cost is how much?
I think it's between 150 and 175,000. We're working on that level of effort with the consultant right now, the detailed scope of work, and plan to take that to SGRA's March board for Thursday. But coming up at the trustee meeting in March is essentially the vote for use of those excess funds. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm wondering, maybe providing you or others with examples. I mean, the consultant you're using, that's kind of their specialty. Other water utilities of similar size that have done something like that, what the benefits are, explaining how it's used, how it's built.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an IT guy at heart. I love this stuff. I totally get it, right? I know the value. I'm just trying to kind of decide if it's this big or as big as the bedrocks, or is it something a little bit smaller? So you answer to this Excel, that's good. You're not going to build some proprietary system that's running on some language that nobody can, maintain in the future. It's a lot of macros for $150,000. Maybe you can just help me understand like what the consultant said, what's on the shelf. We just have to, I mean, what I would take away from this is needs to be an overarching, because I saw your budget guidelines as well. There needs to be an overarching kind of role, I think, of looking at costs everywhere we go. Okay, there's nothing, everything's going up. And your budget guidelines are very clear what's going up, right? And we see it here. We had the same conversation with Jim and Eric last Wednesday. The board of trustees did about Woodlands Water Agency. So whether you're spending it or we're reimbursing you or we're spending it directly, it's still money out of the resident's pocket. I'll make sure it's well spent. That's just where I'm coming from. It's hard for me to say, yeah, $150,000 is a good deal to get it some Excel model built. Maybe it's great. I don't know.
So it's kind of some further comparison benchmarking on that cost. Help you.
Yeah.
We can provide you information on, hey, we paid X number of $100,000 to develop a raw water rate model, or what we paid for the GRP rate model, or what other utilities of a similar.
Give me something to go by. I mean, I don't have anything. We had the similar conversation on the digital billing system that WWA is considering. Is that a good price, bad price? Is that a good vendor? Is it something that's can you maintain this model? Is your idea that you're going to maintain the model? Or you have a
yes.
Excel.
It doesn't matter. If you don't know the advanced Excel, you can't maintain it.
Most part, that is the plan. If there's major updates or changes that need to be made, we might have kind of an on-call work order with the consultant that developed it to adjust. But the goal is to make it user-friendly, maintainable, and runnable different scenarios internally. That's true.
Yeah,
Go ahead, I'm gonna.
Maybe
We're not
look
asking
at somebody else that's already
Oh,
done
this is just
this.
a,
Just an FYI, opportunity to have an
Yeah, okay.
exchange and get more information, and then it will be on the trustee meeting on March 8th to get support at that.
okay.
appreciate your questions. Thank you. Using your expertise there. So, next on the SJRA reporting.
Yes. I guess quickly, I wanted to do, kind of going on a little bit extending on what Jason said. So page 47 in your packet, there's a presentation that was presented to the audit committee regarding budget guidelines, but also some kind of a funding roadmap that now that we've gone through this wastewater strategic plan, so we had some projects on hold that are no longer going to be needed, and how we propose shifting those funds around. And this is something that we come to you with our 10-year project planning and budget. So page 55 is the first one regarding future facilities, where there's a fund for future facilities that currently has a balance of almost $4.6 million. There was a planned approved project associated with that for capacity increases with wastewater plant 1 aeration basins for a little over $2 million. Aeration basins at plant 1 are currently no longer planned to be needed with the wastewater strategic plan of constructing a new facility. So with that, we plan to utilize those $4.6 million and put it towards an elevated storage tank number 6. Utilize the funds for planning, design, construction of that. And those future facility funds would be transferred and essentially tied into the R&R funds. So where any additional funding that's needed for that project would come from R&R. That's first proposal. Second one,
Question, sorry.
you can ask questions anytime.
The, my copy is weird. I'm like, the right side of mine is all cut off.
That is,
On the printed side.
Is it on the printed
Yeah,
one? as
that
well?
is all of it.
Yeah.
So
So what is it, just it says on the right pane, additional funding and R&R, and then something purchases, additional funding from R&R. What's the rest of that sentence on the second block on the bottom? You just said it, but
yeah,
it's additional funding from R&R, it looks like an O. And then the word purchases.
I think it's capacity purchase. So anything beyond what's in the current 65. That's it.
How come we don't have an electronic version of this, just a printed PDF kind of thing? What happens with this whole process of making these packets?
So these slides, I'm assuming we provided to Shelley, and they were
Like they're
compiled
scanned
in
in.
a packet, and I
Yeah.
don't know what went wrong where.
From a piece
So,
of paper? here?
Shelley was out recovering from surgery. We were piecemealing things the best we could.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that before with an SJRA.
So the elevated storage tank project is something that we said, yeah, we need. And if the funds weren't coming from this left side of the pane, the current thing, we would have had another that would have been in the budget somewhere where, I guess maybe I was absent that day, but when did we talk about that? What is that for?
The elevated storage tank project,
That probably before my time.
Well, before our time.
it has been, Jason, I don't know if you can speak out how long that's the plan, but
Yeah, ET6, it's been planned for years.
Is it the one where out by the Home Depot on the west side of the Woodlands? Is that,
If you're driving out research in Egypt, on your left-hand side.
Mr. Area already owns that property,
okay,
and it was planned for.
that means I've heard of it. So those before your time.
Is this something we're just, are you asking us to vote on this again, or is it just guidelines or?
This is just for information today.
Okay.
And discussion. Essentially, this is what would come through approval of 10-year project plan and.
And that would be voted on several months out.
Correct.
Summer.
Does it solve the low pressure problem that we have now?
Sure, Jason.
Not aware of low pressure problem.
Okay. That's why we have elevated storage tanks,
Well,
right?
LA storage tanks are more or less, it's for fire protection and storage. Currently, right now, the River Forks PWS is operating under an ACR, alternative capacity requirement.
Can you translate
We're
that?
using
Sorry.
Alternative capacity requirement from the state.
Okay.
Where we're using our booster pump capacity to make up for the lack of elevated storage tank capacity. And that runs out in the next year. So this elevated storage tank, technically, with the connections to population is necessary.
It's just the Woodlands division?
Well, it's our public water system, the wholesale system, which feeds the retail system. It's
Okay,
all intertwined.
okay. That makes sense, yeah.
If you were to look up your MUD, you won't have the ACR in your TCEQ pack or in your TCEQ information. You have to look up our PWS to gain that information. Through the ACR.
You speak English
You
and
gotta
academic.
translate. I know that it makes sense to you, but I have no idea what you just said.
So, which one, the TCEQ?
No, I got that one, the PWS.
PWS is public water system.
Okay, thank you.
So every MUD has a public water system ID number with the state.
Gotcha.
And that's, so when I refer to the wholesale system, we're referring to our public water system, our PWS.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Larry read.
Go ahead.
Page 56 is regarding the R&R funds. So current is on the left side there, lift station number 5 force main project. That has been budgeted for almost $5.3 million. That project is intended to go away with the wastewater strategic plan recommendation for putting in an all gravity line from the Station 5 area south of Woodlands Parkway down to the new wastewater facility. So that essentially would be no longer needed. The town center water line replacement currently in the R&R fund, there's about $4.9 million that is budgeted. That project is intended to be transferred to bond funding, future bond funds that we would acquire for AC water line program. That is a project that, excuse me, is currently in final designs. And would be moving towards construction, which construction is approximately about $10 million or so. So the proposal there, take those R&R funds and transfer them to land acquisition for the new wastewater treatment facility. So that's from current plant east to Golden Road, the land required for that. And then another $5 million for what we potentially may need on the wastewater conveyance land acquisition, which currently right now we don't know exactly what that routing is going to be. Through preliminary engineering, that'll be defined, and we would be looking at a land acquisition program there also. So utilizing R&R, essentially cash funds for land acquisition. Questions on that?
Explain the town line again, sorry.
The town center water line?
Yeah,
That is an AC water line where I believe parts of that is upwards about 50 years old, is aging infrastructure. That
AC, sorry.
So that's its concrete.
Okay, thanks.
And that is aging infrastructure that, needs replacement. And has been identified as really that first major water line project as part of the 10-year program that would be tackling. So that's up Grogan's Mills toward Evergreen Circle, I think it is.
AC has a much shorter useful life than PVC. And that's,
Just the name is bad, right?
Yeah, the A.
yeah.
So
Blood and water
So
in
what
the
happens
area.
to this project?
So we plan to fund that project, the construction further with bond funding.
Okay, I missed that part, sorry.
Bond funds that we would need to acquire, and there'll be more discussion on that at your other trustees.
So how is that? Why not part of the, maybe you don't have the answer to this. So you have a $5 million project for the town center water line. you're gonna say, well, we're gonna use bond funds for that. But over here on the land acquisition and the conveyance, we're just gonna use R&R funds. So how is that determination made? What are you using bonds for? What are you using R&R for? Why the swap, as it were? Is there some other thing going on there? Is this the magic of rate making or bond fund stuff or?
Well, part of it is, similar to the wastewater project, similar to the other water line renewals, replacements. Those are, long-term assets, 50-year plus expected useful life. So with something like that and the cost that they are, $10 million plus, we feel packaging those into bond issuances, really to where we are paying over time, essentially, the residents of the Woodlands are paying over time as they make comments. The other advantage we see is we would like to use R&R, essentially cash fund on hand, to fund land acquisition because there is some potential challenges or restrictions if we try to fund land acquisition through certain bonds. So we want to be able to utilize essentially kind of cash on hand to streamline the land acquisition process.
Does that make sense? The town center water line was in the R&R budget. Somebody put it in there.
Yes, and I will say that, as we've gone through design on that, as we've seen price escalation over the recent years, that project estimate has gone up significantly where we don't even have enough R&R funds.
So that was 10 million, you're saying, closer to 10.
Construction wise, you're looking at 10 million or so. But we feel, instead of trying to figure out how to pay for it all out of R&R, take that large sum of money and move it. So that cost has gone up significantly.
So when it was first conceptualized, $4 to $5 million. Well, we had an R&R fund. That could cover it. Now it's gone to 10, and we could use the R&R for something else, which is on the right side of the page. Is that kind of the logic behind this? Okay.
Page 56.
I understand.
Yep, page 57, the last one I'm going to touch on in here is we have about $25 million remaining on the 2017 Water Development Board state revolving funds. So with recent changes, through this wastewater strategic plan, we're kind of reprioritizing how to utilize those remaining bond funds. With the first one being 500,000 towards phase 2 of wastewater strategic plan, which we'll touch on here in a minute. South Shore Gravity Main. This is a project we had on hold for strategic planning. This is a 30 to 48 inch gravity sewer line that runs south of Lake Woodlands up into the Cove area and that kind of southwest corner across Lake Woodlands, actually down to Lift Station 5 through the golf course there a little bit. So that is planned to get kicked back off, finish up final design and take that to construction. So we have approval from the Water Development Board to utilize those funds already for that project. Further on, we're looking at funding the preliminary and final design of the conveyance piece. The new conveyance piece on the wastewater side down from Lift Station 5 down to the new treatment facility. Estimating $4 million for that right now. And then also funding wastewater treatment facility number 1 replacement design with whatever's remaining. Right now, we're estimating the $8.3 million. So that is our current proposal, how to utilize the remaining 2017 bond funds.
Good question. The conveyance design there, it says design, I assume it means just design, right? Or does it include, and is that the same as the wastewater conveyance acquisition of 5 million?
Yes, sir. Well, same project, not overlapping cost.
So just getting the land acquisition is 5 million, the right away?
Current estimate. And it's variable because we don't know the route yet. We really need to go through preliminary engineering to define that route and get a better estimate on that 5 million.
And is that what the 4 million gets you?
That's what the first piece of that would. So 4 million is gonna get you the preliminary engineering, which that's where you're looking at the routing, any fatal flaws. And doing some survey, geotech, et cetera. The final design phase is where you're actually producing the drawings for
Sure.
contractors to
Yeah.
bid on.
Understand.
That is also included in that 4 million.
That includes final design.
So maybe call it 1 million or 1.5 million for preliminary, and then the rest going forward like a final design.
So, so I don't mean, you all have questions, that's fine, I'm just. There was another thing I wanted to ask you.
Have any as good as yours.
It's back here. So up earlier in the wastewater strategic plan discussion, which we haven't had yet, I know that, but I'm just trying to square these numbers. Proceed with land acquisition.
Yep.
And then also commence preliminary engineering for conveyance alternative and removal of 5 lift stations. It'd be helpful when we get into that discussion, you can rack all these dollars we're just talking about and put them back up to here for what we're spending, because I can't really tell. That's what I was asking. It looks like we've got 5 million for conveyance, and then you got another 4 for design. Correct? That's 9 for that one line item, proceeding with the conveyance for the wastewater strategic plan. Is that correct? Am I thinking about that right?
5 million is for land acquisition. And then the 4 million would be for not just preliminary engineering, but also final design. It's not directly comparable to those stakeholder recommendations, because those funding for the remaining 2017 bond funds will continue on beyond what these recommendations in the future design phases or further land acquisition. So I can't say, all right, this line item is X million dollars. Try to tie it as best I can. I want you to.
There's really big numbers. They're just kind of, they're not matching in my mind. I'm just trying to square that. I personally think there's a lot more work to do to really tighten these numbers up and get them in a way that we can understand what the heck we're authorizing you to spend on our behalf of the residents. Right? That's what we're doing here. And every dollar matters in my mind. And I don't think we could, if you could ask any of us, how much are you going to spend on the conveyance system, land, engineering, final design, and then construction? I don't think any of us could tell you that. And yet we're going to be asked later on tonight to vote on this for the trustee, me, to go up and vote on it next month, right? I'm trying to blow you up, Dan. I'm just trying to tell you where my reacting to the information I have here now, which is not what I would expect at this point in time. That's just my reaction to what we're being tasked with. So I'm trying to kind of on the fly here, understand, put these things together with these big chunks of dollars that are coming up, how they're going to hit our budgets at the end of the day and in our rates, and how we're going to recover them. I know we're not going out bonds. I get that. You guys are going to be the bond issuer. We're going to reimburse you. We've got a mechanism to do that. The $8.3 million, which is the replacement design. Okay, so wastewater treatment number 1 replacement design.
Right.
What level of design is that? Is that just like, it's kind of the same question for the conveyance design? Is that
So
initial phase kind of?
So the first line item on that 2017 funds shows the split out the 500,000 for phase 2. So that's going to get us through phase 2 to where the 8.3 million would go towards funding preliminary design and as much as we can of the final design. At some point in time, whether it's to finish up design or go to construction, additional bond funds are going to be required.
What's your internal estimate on prelim plus final design right now? Assuming you have a contingency of, I don't know, I think you're carrying a 30% contingency right now?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
Which I've said before, I think's low based on where you are in the project, but I'll take it, right? If it gets that.
So I don't have the number in. I have to, like, I don't want to tell you something. I don't want to, yes, we have outlays from Reese Nichols, our consultant, showing those costs.
I was hoping to get that, I guess, at this point before a vote. That we would really see a timeline of, because what all you've shown us so far is a big line, a couple lines showing the different comparisons of the R&R versus alternative 9, right? All the stuff we were fussing about. We talked about time value money, we talked about the rate impact and all these things that came out of the spend curve that you had put together, right? And we have the alternative, the first one, which is spend some money now and then spend some money later, versus alternative 9, which is spend it all upfront. I'm oversimplifying, right? And then all the things we went through to kind of compare and contrast the effect on the ratepayer and how that was going to flow through to the residents, right? That was kind of a big part of the conversation. And those are such high level numbers. It's really hard to know kind of how these things feed into that. The first couple years are like this big on the graph. I can't tell. There's like 10 million that goes to 15, then it goes to 20. I would expect us to see what are the sources of funds and what is the expenditure of funds out through what you think is your design, kind of your best design understanding right now to date. With your 30% contingency, I get that it's going to be inside there, but you should have a pretty good idea of when you're going to need money and where it's coming from. Right?
Yeah.
And I think this audience needs to see kind of that roadmap. And then the description of things that go with that. This kind of, I think you're trying to get there with this. But it's hard to put my arms around all of this. I don't have a sense of when's this money going to be spent. You know what I'm saying? I need a project plan with some money in it.
Sure.
And funding and expenditures, even if it's at an annual level.
Right. Yeah. I think
Or these big line items that you're talking about, the conveyance, the property, the design, preliminary versus final.
we have individual project sheets for each one of these now that show the cash flows of basically what you're asking for.
And I think you want us to understand so that we know what we're authorizing. And then also kind of puts SJRA on the hook for living up to as close as you can to those, because you're going to come back and ask us for more money as sure as we're sitting here. I can't imagine any scenario in the next 5 years that this project doesn't change scope and change costs.
Yeah, but if we had like more of a drill down on it, we could look at potentials where there might be some scope creep in the project,
Yeah.
whereas this is just like an executive summary kind of thing where it's just like, well, okay, it's a big number, but what does this all make up? There's a lot of moving parts. And some moving parts, you're like, that's going to be like right on the money. And there's others you might look at and just going, even given the cost of money a year from now, it just might escalate. But we kind of need to know what those are. Just so that if we've got to go back and talk to our constituency, as just like we did the best we could with the knowledge that we had at the time, but we were wrong.
My experience has shown me that we're going to be back here talking money again. I mean, you've never done this before, right? You've never torn one plant down and built a new one right next to it. I don't think so. It's
Things could happen.
it's got a lot of moving parts, which is great. We're behind you, but it's our residents' money that we're spending, and we just have to keep getting back to that. And I know you understand that, but I'm not trying to be kind of weird about this. I'm just really trying to set expectations.
So there's an article in the Conroe Courier about a newer wastewater treatment plant they have for 59 million with a capacity of 10 to 12 million gallons a day. That's how do we tell residents, or what do we say about why our solution is so much more expensive?
Yes, and that mud directors have brought that to our attention, and we acknowledge that, and we need to basically address it in response and justify, hey, City of Conroe built $59 million plan at X capacity, 4 years ago. What,
That was
What
asked
is-
at one
what-
of the stakeholder meetings. I mean, the same question came up in
Correct.
December.
so what justifies a $200 million plan for here in the Woodlands? So yes, we acknowledge that question too.
And I think that our whole board, and let me know if I'm out of turn, but I appreciate that Hugh is using his career and expertise and stopping and asking these questions. And I support you. And I'm glad you got on board before we made this decision that you're reviewing this, and I'm thankful for it.
Yeah. Well, I view San Jacinto River Authority as acting as our agent for the residents. You're a contractor, even though you're your own entity, you really are working on our behalf, right? And if you were hiring you as a contractor, which kind of looks and feels that way, I'd want a really good budget detailed out to a level of detail. And I think you have it. I think it's a matter of maybe what you want to share, what you should share. Maybe the other MUDs don't care. I do.
And I think it's just the level of design that was really very high level conceptual during that phase 1 strategic planning. So yes, there is cost estimates out there, outlays over 50 years that were put together. But, as we continue to go in phase 2 and further design phases, those are going to continue to be refined. With contingency coming down, with costs coming down, there's questions on what is the right size for capacity. That makes a big difference. So there's a lot more refinement on those costs.
I know the stakeholder group is sunset right now. I mentioned this at the end of last year to Ed and others that I think the cadence of updates on this project needs to be established pretty quickly. And if you want to use the Board of Trustees, that's fine. I don't think we need to reconstitute the stakeholder group. Then it's the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees are going to get the ball here in the next month. And then I think Monkey should jump on their back, and you guys should be updating the Board of Trustees and let us get into these details with you directly. And each MUD will be represented. And I would expect that to be just like that stakeholder group. Sitting up here at the trustee level, you kind of take out the middle, as it were, and we start unpacking this in a big way.
I would really like to see it at the trustee level, because we've got a camera and this is a big decision. And I'd like for residents 5 years down the road to watch this if anything should go wrong
Yeah.
with this and this becomes a hot topic. What's going on down at Waste Plant number 1? It's gotten bigger.
It's
And
gonna
so
get
on.
bigger. I assure
Yeah.
you it's gonna get bigger. So I mean, Ed's not here and the rest of the, leadership's not here. So I would take that, I mentioned that at the end of the year. I think there was an acknowledgement, but I don't know if it's gonna come up again. I'm gonna keep bringing it up until we establish a regular routine. So that we can have these kind of updates. This is just not the level of detail I think that we need to be able to help drive the project. That's just where I am. And I imagine there's some others out there as well, kind of feeling the same way.
I kind of heard something like that at the end of this meeting as it was breaking up. Yeah. So,
I think we kind of knew that coming out of the stakeholder meeting, that we're gonna have some that are ready to go. And there's gonna be some that are like, nope, not there. And, the thing is still progressing. So it's gonna progress, but we're gonna, maybe I'll be the one digging my heels in. I'll be an anchor on this thing, but that's okay. We also heard that there's time, right? We're not time constrained. I know there's some projects you guys want to kick off and get going. I get that. But I don't think we're at a 11th hour here of decision making.
and as far as anchors go in the decision making, I wish you were a bigger anchor the size of MUD 47, and that 46 was an anchor the size of 46. These are the biggest MUDs. And, yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want from a lot of smaller muds being the majority would be just a tragic event, which is just the way we're structured.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, we all have our wheelhouse of where we fit in this thing. And, I've always wanted to make, when we were going to consolidate it too, the website that said we shouldn't try to pump the stuff uphill. And, now my focus has shifted to the cost of this and building in green space and that it's enormous. And this whole stakeholder thing, we had the guy that came in and spoke in public open comment so frequently about this should be a public process. And I'm liking what you're saying about, if you bring it to the trustee level, you make this a public process, and this is too massive not to be. So.
Yeah, I think you want that. If I'm you want that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, we beat that, that horse.
Okay, so we did waste strategic plan update from SJRA, infrastructure funding, Bear Branch Dam.
Sure, so no real update on the infrastructure fund, and that's tied to the Crenshaw's and the omnibus bill and the 3.6 million
And appropriation.
appropriations for Bear Branch Dam spillway replacement and the slope. So other Bear Branch Dam update is regarding, we talked about a valve vault there and the lid and hatch associated with that. So the hatch is procured and planned to be delivered to SJRA middle of March. And then we are currently working on getting a contractor on board to install that as soon as it gets in. So hopefully by mid-April, we have a new hatch and lid on that valve vault. Really help with some of the safety aspects associated with that. Really eliminate people breaking locks off of it and getting access.
Speaking of breaking locks, I heard that there has been crime again out at the dam and that Carlton Woods is asking for some funding for security. Is that right? Is there an update on that?
I know we've talked in the past, but I don't have a recent update on any additional requests or conversations.
Okay.
But yeah, we're constantly fixing fences out there that are being cut.
Mhm. Okay, I'll watch for more updates at the Mud 46 meeting. I think those guys have information.
I have just a couple of things. Can you explain for those here, the crossover on the groundwater versus surface water in your report?
Oh, the big crossover.
You did it to trustees. I just want
Thank
our
you.
directors to hear that.
Also, as far as.
Yeah, groundwater and surface water crossed over. And you explained it to us. You explained it to us at the trustee level. I'd like Diana and Cynthia and Laura to hear it as well.
Yeah, so of course, the 50-50 blend that we shoot for is an annual average. So monthly, it could fluctuate depending on what the system dictates or a couple other issues in the field. But this last December, it was brought to our attention that there were some elevated TTHMs, disinfection byproducts, total trihalomethanes. So we got the notice for WWA. We had some high results in the field. So we lowered the surface water blend to 35-65 to, lack of a better term, dilute the TTHM. The more groundwater you have, the less formation of TTHMs that you have. We retested this last month in January. Those numbers are very low. So we're moving it back towards the 50-50 now. As production ramps up for summertime, you'll probably see a little more surface water than less groundwater. Because we're going to try to hit that 50%, 50-50 annual average. So that's why you use more water. And you use more water in the summertime also. That's one of the issues with the TTHM formation. During the winter time, you have less demand on the system. So the water is allowed, your water range goes up.
What do places do that are live down here in Houston where it's so hot? And they are on completely surface water. There's got to be a place like that. What do they do?
City of Houston, they use chloramines for disinfection. Which may get a blend of ammonia, some other chemicals, and you're using an ammonia chemical to mainly form chloramines. We don't use that. We use free chlorine. which is a very stable and very, it's stable and it's predictive as far as your disinfection goes. But it does react with organics in the water. It forms these disinfection byproducts. Other large cities that do have mostly surface water and use-free chlorination, they have advanced treatment at the water facilities. Aeration in the ground storage tanks, recirculation in the elevated storage tanks. So you do have advanced treatment that could be implemented, say if the Woodland said we want to go 80%, you're definitely looking at some sort of advanced treatment at that point. But right now, we use the dilution to flushing method to control what we have out there now.
You know, with the drought this summer, the pickup and subsidence at the monitoring stations along Research was phenomenal. So I do see a day where, you know, we'd be looking at how beneficial it would be to our homes to have more surface water.
Yes,
So, and I drink this stuff. I bring it.
good water.
Yeah, I haul it from home. So,
That's good.
all right.
One of the, I don't know if you're getting into this on the water loss revisions. Were you guys gonna talk about that, or is that? That's another topic, I think, that I would like these directors to hear.
Recently, we came across, there were some, basically there were formulas that were pulling all the information in. And this was before the automatic meter reads, is the bills were consistent of 20 days of one month and 10 days of the other month. So we had to pull that data separately to build the loss. So now with the automatic meter reads, it's a month. So it's a 30-day month or 31-day month, you know what? So we had found while doing the audit, there were some formulas left over that were still pulling some information that was basically, it was showing that we were having exaggerated loss instead of showing the reduction of loss as we went. So we corrected that. That was, we went through the system front and back, up and down. We found where those miscalculations were. So that's why we just wanted to put something in there just to show we reported this along the way. Reality with the automatic meter reading systems and all the work that WWA has done has caused a decrease in water loss.
Fantastic.
So 9% went to 4 to 5%.
Yes.
Cut in half.
2% is what it's currently up.
And the Amoresco guy, he kept saying that will happen. It's one of the benefits.
So it was happening.
was.
We just weren't we remember in the review, the look back we did, we kind of said, hey, why isn't that thing sticky? It's sticking up here at 9%. So actually, it was down. And now you got that's great. I just wanted them to hear that.
Cool.
That's all. On page 39, no, sorry, page 30, going backwards here. There's a groundwater tracking report.
Page 39.
Page 30, sorry. And it shows projected groundwater uses and actual groundwater usage, and it refers to this projected groundwater usage. And there's even a legend item on it, but I don't see projected
On the chart,
on the
right?
chart. Is that something I'm just missing, or is that an old legend?
This is GRP, what we're looking at.
Yep. 1.1 of the report, groundwater data.
Yes.
I know you guys hate it when I look through this stuff, but
No, this is stuff that,
I just didn't see anything. It's any data that showed projected.
no,
groundwater.
basically it's just showing previous actuals and with a current average. So it's a miswording.
We'll take that back to the group and get it corrected.
Either
I'm
add
assuming
the-
it's a carryover of some projected column for some reason, but I can't explain.
Yeah. Okay, I just make sure I
If
wasn't.
they hate it, I love it. So cancels out. Thank you, you.
Pain. All right. Are we gonna get into the budget guidelines? Are we doing that tonight?
I don't think it was scheduled to get into it, but if you have any questions, by all means, we can definitely speak on it.
Did y'all have any questions on it?
On the guidelines, no.
Maybe the one right now at this point I had on, so you refer to, I get labor, materials, you kind of are talking about a 10% kind of increase.
Yeah, basically across goods and what have you, goods and services.
Yeah. You also then refer to natural gas. And my question to you all is, how are you, I don't know what portion of that is of the budget to start with. I guess I could go dig through here and maybe find it somewhere. Being in the natural gas business for so long, it just caught my attention. So sorry about that. How do you all view and look at your kind of fuel costs? Do you just take like the last 3 months, the last 12 months and then project it out?
Yeah, and you're talking fuel,
And-
they unleaded diesel fuel, you do a 12-month average. Project to see. We have more vehicles coming online, whatever the case may be, but now we're talking natural gas, electricity. Yeah, our county department, they project the natural gas, and natural gas is a small portion of that.
Yeah.
When it's compared to electricity in the mix.
I mean, it shows up in our power around here. I mean, it's the main driver of the power changes. Yeah. So it's more of a question of what you're looking at and how you're trying to just because power prices are going to go all over the board right now and they're going to start coming back down again.
They're looking at, so they're basing everything instead of, and of course, we contact our folks that we talk to as Energy and CenterPoint, and we try to fill them out, see if we can get any type of information. What are they seeing? What are they thinking? And usually it's not very great information.
Yeah.
So we work a lot off actuals and what we've seen over the past couple of years, which is one of the skew things if they do start to come down, because the past 2 years have been extraordinary.
And that's why I'm bringing it up,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they spiked up, they came way back down, and that wave's going to work itself through. By the time this budget gets through, it's probably going to be through the system already in the power system. That's all.
Yeah, it's something that we're looking at that just to see
Yeah.
how are we trending,
Yeah.
online, offline. I tell you now, our actuals are above what we've projected currently.
Yeah.
What we're seeing actually today, above projected. So yeah, it's something that we definitely will work on to the last day.
Okay, yeah, we'll just keep talking about it. Okay. All right, that's all I have.
All right, well, next agenda item, we've kind of gotten into, consider an act on giving direction to trustee on how to vote on the wastewater strategic plan. So we've kind of already talked about this a fair bit, and I think we've already heard some consensus that we want to hold on.
Need more
on that
information.
and get more information.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to do just that we don't, and we just hold off.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
All right.
All right,
So Laura, just if I may, I want to let you know up here, I don't think you all got it, but
oh,
there's a memo from our consultant, Teresa Nichols, addressing some questions we received from other MUD directors regarding the membrane technology.
Oh, yeah.
You know, where are these being manufactured? Where can we get spare parts? How, what's the availability of field service, et cetera. So I'm not going to go into detail, but I do want you to have one of these. Feel free to reach out with questions.
Is that a lot of Director Walker's from Dale Walker from Mud 60s questions?
This came out yesterday. Looks like it's
Yeah.
dated yesterday.
Yeah, I got it, the final version. More.
I was back from my trip and I went to some waste meeting. I was there with a couple directors from 46 and Director Walker from 60 was there. And he brought up, I guess, a lot of questions that are addressed here. And then we talked about doing another final accounting, eighth final accounting. Is that what we would be on? I don't know. Well, we got to drop the final accounting part, but we're growing in capacity. And the point of that is, who should pay for that? And so I learned, I think the term is, offset fees. Maybe I've got it wrong. It was a new term to,
Yeah.
re-
Heard about that.
yeah, to require newcomers to buy into the system because we've already got the infrastructure was the concept. So impact fees. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So anyway, that was the only, those are a couple things that I learned during that meeting. So I'm glad we're done with 10. That was quick because we spent so much time on 9, right?
So what's gonna happen then, before next month? Trustee meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can chat about this offline, but, I think
To know an
we're
expectation.
gonna have to probably call a special, meeting prior to our next month meeting. For us, and I would imagine there might be some other MUDs. If there's some other MUDs doing that, then I think you may be back to getting us all together and dealing with the quorum issues. I know that's a thing, but we've got to be able to,
Yeah.
if we're going to worry about quorums, we're going to go back to individual, representatives. We need another month to get people back together again, right? You're being recycled essentially, and from my view, you're not going to get an answer from us. We're going to recycle. You get to ask for some more information, which I think you have. Somehow we have to hear it and get comfortable with it. If there's other MUDs that want to do it, then maybe we do it together. If that creates a quorum problem, then we deal with that somehow.
A special meeting.
Which we already talked with one MUD that is planning to have a special meeting to discuss a couple things on waste Marcia do. They wanted to set that up prior to the March trustee meeting.
I'm just trying to make it easier on you guys. So you don't have to have 3 or 4 of these, one-offs, and you have 4 offs or 5 offs or whatever it is.
Is it possible to have 2 MUDs meet at the same time?
You can, it's messy. I mean, we did that with just trying to go through the consolidation. I think it's the last time we did that, the 2 MUDs, MUD 2 and MUD 40. It can get a little difficult to track discussion and motions, but legally, can you do it? Yes.
I think as we go through tomorrow and have additional MUD meetings,
Yeah.
we'll have to kind of follow up on it.
You'll have a better idea, like what is it, 2 or 5 or 1.5 or whatever.
Good idea though.
But I think we're
Yeah.
committed to meet
Mhm.
another time. If it has to be
Yep.
alone or just us, then we'll do that, right? But if you can simplify it for your sake, then let's do that too. It had the benefit of other questions too. I think that's the big benefit. Hear what other people are asking, right?
Okay, attorney's report.
Not much to report from the legislative session yet. We are actively tracking number of bills, but nothing yet to bring to the board's attention as being something that's, significant concern yet. So it's still early in the process. But more to come.
Anything going on in the groundwater conservation district kind of realm?
Well, you're talking about the appointment issue. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think there was last month, there was a letter that was sent
Oh, I
from
saw that.
from the trustees. They authorized the board president, Bob Lux, to send a letter supporting the appointment of
John Yours.
John Yours. And then I don't think any action to date has been taken on that by Lone Star. They sent a response letter saying that they're looking at applicants and they'll make their decision.
Could they let the Woodland seat go vacant for?
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely.
And it's a 4-year term?
Yes.
It is a 4-year term. Whether their statutes would allow for them to call a special election to fill that earlier, I couldn't say. But legally, could they leave the spot open? I think so. And not take action to a point. I mean, as long as they have a quorum, they can take action.
Okay. All right, general manager's report.
Okay, but quickly, a few items to highlight from our trustee meeting. you may remember a few months back, Trustee Paul Martin brought to the trustee board a concern about merchant service fees that are that the MUDs cover for customers to do electronic payments, website payments, a whole host of, we had a variety of different categories of merchant service fees. Trustee or President Lux asked that committee to be an ad hoc committee to look into that topic and come back with some recommendations at some point. Well, since then, Maureen has done some research. Maybe I think has been doing it for a while, that there's a vendor out there that would be a really a big upgrade to what we have now. It would level the playing field, if you will, on merchant service fees, probably reduce them, have a whole host of benefits from an operational standpoint. So what Trustee Martin asked is just that their committee would put a pause on that until we have a chance to kind of vet this option with staff to vet it, talk about it with that committee and bring it back at a later date.
That's the audit committee.
Trustee Martin also reported that based on the resolution that we had developed back in 2018, that tells us to look at our reserves, the Woodlands Water Agency reserves after the audit's done. And if those reserves are in a 1.5 to 2 month range, that things remain status quo. If those reserves are exceeding 2 months, that we look at refunding some of that money back to the MUDs. But the fact they're in that range, no action would be taken on reserves this year. In your packet, a couple of letters that we just referred to regarding position 7, the Woodlands position 7 on Lone Star. We got a compliment email we like to refer to, and somewhere in your packet, I don't know what page it's on. But then we had a personnel committee meeting prior to the trustee meeting and went through a list of what we're calling general manager special focus projects. And I think we're going to do some tweaking to that list and then release it at some point. That concludes my report.
Okay, I got a couple of questions. Someone sent me a picture of what they think is a sinkhole out in Mud 1. Is there a sinkhole in Mud 1?
Not, well,
Sort of over where,
related to groundwater withdrawal.
just.
Yeah, sinkholes can
Woodlands
develop.
water out
Like if we have a storm sewer in the ground and then there's a leak in the storm sewer, then it creates a depression that we call a sinkhole. That could be,
Okay.
but I'm not aware or familiar with what you're looking at.
That it's near Interfaith, northeast of Interfaith, in the neighborhood where that big pond is. And anyway, it looked pretty significant. It had a gate around it. So people wouldn't fall in, and it needs repair.
Mike, you know,
No, nothing.
So I'll get more of a pinpoint location on it and contact you guys.
please do.
And any update on, I tried calling the sheriff tonight, but I just missed the 5 o'clock, but I'm still looking to find out more information about residents tapping into wells to fill their ponds. No information, no news on that?
Have anything?
Okay, and then my last one was, so my neighborhood Facebook group is nervous about the flushing. Probably because I made them that way, because back in 2001, I lost my favorite pair of shorts. They came out burnt orange. And yeah, I told them that flushing is happening. And so they said, well, geez, I got hundreds of dollars in water filters to do tell. And so I was curious, can the company that does this, can they put what neighborhood they're in as they go through this? How many weeks is this flushing process?
10 weeks.
10? So it's a couple months at least. Okay.
But what we can do, and we've actually have talked about this internally based on some feedback today, with the WaterSmart notification system, you can do areas and send out an e-blast if they're signed up to receive it, and we'll say, we're going to be flushing in your neighborhood over the next week or so. So be aware of that and follow the protocols that we've published and are on our website regarding washing and rinsing your clothes. Or if you get clothes, I know a lot of times we deliver what's called, what is it, brown out?
Fired out.
Iron out, excuse me. to residents to rewash their clothes, and it's a remarkable product. I'm told that it will take the iron color out of it, so.
I didn't know about that
Yeah.
back then. It's just- Wow.
Well, we
When
are,
did that start?
it started this week,
Started yesterday.
Started yesterday, okay.
so we're, I think, out in the 39 now. So, our field operation people are gonna work with Marine to kind of get an idea of where they are and send out these.
So iron out
notices.
works on your laundry, but if you have a filter system, it could get it pretty dirty.
Yep.
And you have no solution for that except buying more filters, right? Okay.
Is that done annually?
It is.
Is it? Okay.
Every February, we started. And part of it's exercising the flushing valve, noting if they need a repair, if they need to be painted, and then we come back and it's an audit, is really what we're doing, is an audit of the system, and then flushing the system, then we come back and do all the repairs at a later time.
Gotcha.
An outside company does it, right?
Event, we use a contractor, yeah.
Very good. Any other questions for Jim?
I just have one comment. I'm up to 7 people that have come to me and made a positive comment about the smart meters and that we got. Back when we had like the bad weather, the freezes and that was the only way that, like, one homeowner said that was the only way they knew that they had a crack in the pipe that was above their garage, was they all of a sudden saw the tick in the waters. And one other person told me that their outdoor faucet that they never use in that, just all of a sudden it snapped and was water all over the place, but they didn't see that part of their backyard. And all of a sudden on their phone, they're seeing this, right? And they're like, well, it's got to be someplace. And they go all through their house, and then they go all the way out in the backyard and find there's this one little water faucet in the back. So from just people, in Muddy 47 coming up to me, the HEB and whatever, that were kind of about the whole, smart meter thing, and that we get this freeze snap and that, and it's saved them, a lot of homeowners repairs and that. So other than just being water conservation, just being able to alert them that you got a problem someplace, and especially like with the busted pipe above the garage. I mean, they had to cut through the sheetrock to find the leak, but they knew it was there because it was showing up. So, I mean, I just think I'm positive on this thing now. People are just like, the RF and whatever that it gives off. I'm like, yeah, but here's a benefit over here too, is that we get bad weather and there's something that goes wrong with one of your pipes someplace in your house, that thing will show up.
Good feedback.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Has always been very pro this more modern, accurate meters, but it was hurting cats trying to get the 50 mud directors.
Yeah.
And it was many years to get them finally approved. So good job, guys. We're all still going, man, you did good getting that across the goal line.
Yeah.
Or whatever it's called in football. I just watched a game the other day. First one all year.
Super Bowl.
Oh, I had to get cable TV for an hour, or 5 hours, I guess. Anyway, we don't need to go to closed session, right?
That's correct.
And glad to see Jason with his sickness has left. I was looking out there for public comment. Do we have something we want to put on the future agenda that's unique other than waste treatment plants, obviously? Nothing? Okay.
So, yeah.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Yep.